Good afternoon. Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting's coverage of President Trump's speech today in Wisconsin. It is not just Wisconsin, it's Kenosha. Kenosha or Kenosha? I don't know. Didn't think about that pronunciation until I walked in here right now, 5 seconds ago. I'm going to go with Kenosha. If it's Kenosha, write in and let me know. President Trump's going to be speaking there in 33 minutes if his schedule holds. He's going to be giving a speech, and also he's going to be signing an executive order. The executive order is supposed to help promote his Buy American, Hire American policy. So we're going to be covering that speech. We're going to bring it to you live, but we're also going to do some pre-coverage right now. Then afterwards, we're going to do a post show and talk about what President Trump said. And during all of this, we'd love to hear your comments and read them on the air. Or if you have any questions, feel free to write them in. If you want to send in your comments and your questions, you can write to me on Twitter at Lookner, at Lookner. I'm Steve Lookner, by the way. Or you can email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. Also, I believe Right Side show host Nick Fuentes is going to call in at some point today, I think during the pre-show, and talk to us a little about what President Trump's going to be talking about. I look forward to that. So let's quickly go over what this executive order that President Trump is going to be signing today is going to do. So there are two parts to this executive order: the Buy American part and the Hire American part. The Buy American, and I don't have the actual executive order. I'm going off of reports which inside sources gave to various press outlets over the last day, and I've been reading the various accounts in the various press outlets of this executive order, so I'm going off of those. So the Buy American part of the executive order, what this does is it, and I'm also getting word that Nick is getting ready to come on, so we will summarize the executive order and then we will go to Nick Fuentes. That's very exciting. The Buy American part is where, and I'm going to read, I took a little passage here that I thought was a nice summary of this, is, I'm looking at the Hire American one. Well, basically, what it's doing is it's encouraging and telling American agencies, U.S. federal government agencies, to maximize the amount of purchasing of American raw materials that they're going to use in federal building projects. And let's see, I have here. Let me find it. Yes, this is one excerpt I got. It said, the official said the order also seeks to strengthen requirements that American-made products be used in certain federal construction projects, as well as in various federal transportation grant-funded projects. The Commerce Secretary will be instructed to review how to close loopholes in existing rules and provide recommendations to the President. And this report further says, the order specifically asks the Secretary of Commerce to review waivers of the Buy American rules in free trade agreements. The waivers could be renegotiated or revoked if they are not benefiting the United States. So roughly speaking, this executive order is telling federal agencies to strictly enforce the Buy American rules that are already in place. That's a nice little summary of the Buy American part, but we'll see the exact details when the executive order actually is released. So that's the Buy American part of the executive order. The Hire American part of the executive order focuses on the H-1B visa program. Now, this visa program, the purpose of this H-1B visa program is to let American companies hire specialized, highly educated foreign workers to do specialized, highly paid jobs that require a higher education in this country that they can't find Americans to do. Perhaps there's a shortage in their particular field. And so that's the intention of H-1B visas. You know, jobs like in, say, the tech industry, that would be an industry this program is designed to help find enough workers for. But what has happened with this program is over the last, I want to say 10, 20 years, is that the program has started to be used it's been being used in ways it was not originally intended to be used. So rather than this program being used by tech companies and other specialty companies to bring in foreign workers to supplement their American operations and bring in foreign workers to address a shortage of American workers in this particular field, what's happening is these outsourcing companies, mainly Indian outsourcing companies, are bringing in using the H-1B visa program to bring in workers to replace Americans at their jobs, and the foreign workers brought in are working at much less than American workers work for in these same jobs. So roughly speaking, rather than the H-1B visa program do what it's supposed to do, which is address shortages of highly educated workers to do specialized jobs in America and help American companies by letting them bring in foreign workers to do these jobs that there aren't enough Americans to do, this visa program has become a problem because it's allowing companies to bring in foreign workers to do the exact same job as American workers do, but for much less money, and because these people from foreign countries will work for much less money, and American workers are losing their jobs because of H-1B visas, which was not the point. So President Trump wants to address this higher American part of this executive order seems like it's designed to at least partially address the issues with the H-1B visa program. And what it's doing is, I have another excerpt here. The order calls on the Department of Labor, the Department of Justice, the Department of Homeland Security, and the State Department to take prompt action to crack down on fraud and abuse within the immigration system to protect workers. The order will call on those 4 federal departments to propose reforms to ensure H-1B visas are awarded to the most skilled or highest paid applicant. So, what this order doesn't do, it doesn't actually change the H-1B visa rules. And there is a question of, can you really fix the program if you don't change the actual H-1B visa law? Like, one way to possibly help fix the program would be to say, okay, we have to raise the amount of money that companies pay H-1B visa immigrants. So I think now the minimum they can pay, it has to pay at least like $60,000 or something like that. But if they raise that up more, it would not allow outsourcing companies to bring in, say, Indian workers and let them get paid $60,000 at some job Americans get paid $80,000 for if you raise the minimum that you have to pay these workers. But the executive order, because it's an executive order, it's not changing the law. There's only so much it can do. So, it's certainly not going to fix all problems that there might be with the H-1B visa program, but it's designed to make a start at addressing some of the problems. So that's the summary, very brief summary of the executive order that President Trump is going to sign today. It has a Buy American component and a Hire American component, and he's also going to be speaking before signing the executive order in Wisconsin today. But before we get to that speech, and that speech is coming up in about 25 minutes now, we're going to have more pre-show, but also we have on the line now, if I'm correct, we have Nick Fuentes on the line. Nick, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Steve.
It's a pleasure to talk to you, Nick. I've watched you, but I've never actually spoken to you, so it's great to have, thank you for calling in, great to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. The same is true with you. I've watched you on RSBN, but first time talking. Nice to meet you.
Awesome, thanks. And if anybody out there has not seen Nick's show, Nick does a show every night, America First with Nick Fuentes, talks about all kinds of political issues, and I would recommend checking it out, and that airs at 8 p.m. Eastern every weeknight at Right Side Broadcasting. So Nick, I was wondering if you have any thoughts today on any of the stuff President Trump is going to be speaking about, any of the Hire American, Buy American stuff, the fact that he's speaking in Wisconsin, any of that stuff. Do you have any thoughts on any of this you'd like to share?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think it's very reassuring that he's rolling out these 2 new executive orders, returning to really the core of his campaign and the core of his platform that he ran on, which a big part of that was the economic nationalism. And I know a lot of people were a little bit anxious because there are rumors that there's infighting in the West Wing, and Steve Bannon may be having a fall from grace. And I think it's reassuring to Trump's base that we're seeing that economic nationalism reassert itself in his agenda and in what he's doing in Congress and even in the White House with the executive order. So I think it's really a reassuring thing more broadly just on the politics of the West Wing, not so much in the policy itself, of course. It's a positive that we're finally targeting the H-1B visa program, but it says something larger overall about the administration, which I think is really something that people should be optimistic about.
Now, on the H-1B visa thing, it's interesting because we had actually a viewer called in like last week and said, like, I'm a real Trump supporter, but why hasn't he done anything yet on the H-1B visas? So I think it's worth pointing out that he is doing something about it, and he can't do everything at once. But this, if I'm right, Nick, that this is like the first action he's taken specifically on the H-1B visas. Do you remember anything else he's done before this in his administration?
No, I think that's correct. This is the first time that he's gone specifically after the economics. A lot of it's been healthcare, it's been foreign policy. This is the first real measure I've seen on jobs and everything. So I think it's a step in the right direction.
Now, Nick, Congress is going to be back, I believe, next week, and there's this question as to what President Trump tries to pursue in Congress next. Is he going to go revisit health care? Is he going to go for tax reform? Do you personally have any thoughts on what you would like him to see do next or try to tackle next in Congress, with Congress, in terms of legislation?
Well, I would like to see more pushback on the immigration ban and on the wall. I know Ann Coulter and a lot of other people that went on the stump for Trump during the campaign and who advocated for him. Our biggest issue, and I think the rallying cry of this election, it wasn't repeal Obamacare. It wasn't a lot of the things that he's been focusing on so far. The number one thing was build the wall, stop the illegal immigrants, stop the refugees, stop even Muslims. He talked about having a Muslim ban, and we haven't really seen a whole lot of progress. There were the 2 executive orders that tried to do the limited travel ban, but I think that everyone wants to see him get around to immigration. And of course, there is the gridlock in Congress. There are the political considerations, and maybe there's information we're not privy to about the politics of the party and about Congress, that there's a method to the madness, so to speak, for why he's been tackling health care and taxes before the immigration. Maybe there's a reason for that. I don't know. But me personally, I would want to see a real focus, a refocusing of this administration back to the rallying cry, which was to build the wall, to stop the refugees, stop the drugs and the crime and everything else from pouring in. But I understand there are political considerations. So, and I trust Trump's judgment on that also.
Now, speaking of these political considerations, I know, and the thing you say about getting back to basics, getting back to the things that his base really cared about during the campaign, for example, the wall and the immigration stuff, there is this question whether can President Trump do stuff the base wants and get legislation passed? Because we saw with health care that there's a certain, especially in the Senate, there's a certain group of moderate Republican senators that are iffy when it comes to things that Trump's base might like. And a number of, it seemed like it never got to the Senate, but it seemed like it was going to be difficult to get a bill that did away with a lot of Obamacare. It was going to be difficult to get that kind of bill through the Senate because a number of Republican moderates might not have voted for it in the Senate. Do you think to me it seems like it's going to be like one of the chief difficulties President Trump faces in wanting to get legislation passed is getting stuff passed that satisfies his base and is consistent with the promises he made during the campaign, but also gets through the Senate and gets moderate Republicans on board. Do you think it's possible? Is this an impossible task, or do you think he'll be able to do it?
Well, you're exactly right, Steve. That's a very good observation that, the problem with the Senate and with the Congress is that he didn't win, or Republicans didn't win a huge majority in the Senate. We only have 52. So that means you can only have 3 defectors to get a simple majority. You can only actually get two to three defectors to break any kind of bill that he's going to pass through, and that could be the Freedom Caucus, that could be the moderates, that could be any coalition that could hold the Senate for ransom against the president and against the party. So you're very right. And I think when we come back in 2018, I think we'll have a much stronger hand to play, because if you look at the map for who's up for grabs in the Senate in 2018, it's mostly Democratic states. So it's looking very positive for Republicans that will be able to strengthen and consolidate our majorities, hopefully in both chambers of Congress, and hopefully in 2018 that's when Trump can shine on those issues with his base. So,
And this
right now...
Oh, sorry, continue, Dick. Go ahead.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, it would be difficult now in 2017 when we only have that three-person majority in the Senate, and even in the House we could only have afforded 22 defectors. I think in 2018, I think you're exactly right. We can come back with a stronger hand and play the things to his base.
Now, I think that's a very good point about 2018, that things could be different after the midterm elections. Do you think, Nick, that when Republicans are running in 2018 and President Trump is out there stumping for the different Republican candidates, will they actually make a point of saying things like, look, you've seen what happens when we don't have a big majority in Congress. We need a bigger majority to actually pass this legislation. So I guess what I'm saying is, if legislation goes slowly over the next year and a half because the majority's not that big, do you think that'll hurt the Republicans because people will say, hey, you guys got nothing done, or will it help the Republicans because Republicans will be able to say to their constituents, we need a bigger majority? How do you think that'll play out?
Well, you're right. That is a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, you could play the card that we need the bigger majority to get things passed. On the other hand, you could say, or the Democrats could say, look, they couldn't get all these big things accomplished even though they had all three branches of government under their control. It's going to be tough. I think there are a lot of variables that remain to be seen, because if Trump can get through a tax bill and lower people's taxes, if he can get through the repeal of Obamacare and get people better health care, that'll position them in a really good place in 2018. If people are paying less taxes, if their health care is cheaper, that's going to win them the midterms. You could forget all the Democrats' thorough stuff about, Trump's tax returns and the golden showers and all that. If people are paying less taxes and less for health care, forget it. The Republicans will win in a blowout. So I think that may be the chief political consideration here in Trump's calculus, is if he can get through some of the things that don't play really well to his base, but some of the things that'll win over the centrists and the moderates and even some Democrats for the midterms, then we could really knock it out of the park in the rest of his first term in the remaining 2 years.
That's a good point, Nick. It's this idea that just because, even though President Trump just took office, these election considerations about 2018 are probably if they're not, they probably should be, but I'm guessing they're probably high up in the White House in terms of what do we focus on, how is this going to affect 2018, so definitely something to keep in mind. Before I let you go, Nick, I want to ask what's on your show tonight, but before that, I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this, but I'll throw this at you because you're a smart guy, so I'm sure you have thoughts on this. The North Korea situation, what's going on now? If you had a crystal ball, Nick, how do you think this is going to play out, just personally? Do you have any thoughts on what we're going to see over the next couple of months?
Yeah, well, I think the goal of the Trump foreign policy and the grand strategy of President Trump in the Southeast Asia theater and in the Middle East theater is we're playing a game of brinksmanship. And really, you can read back into the art of the deal. You can read back into what President Trump has done as a candidate, as a businessman, and other things, and you could get an insight into the game he's playing. Right now, the ball is in North Korea's court, and I think that's the smart part of it, is that right now President Trump has put the ball in the court of Kim Jong-un and of President Xi Jinping of China, and to a certain extent, Vladimir Putin of Russia. And he laid out what he expects and what will happen if people do certain things, whether that be using chemical weapons, whether that be testing a nuclear weapon. And he's put Putin and Jinping and Kim Jong-un in a position where they know that Trump is a wild card. They don't know how he might respond to provocation. So really, if there's another missile test, if there's a nuclear test, and I think there will be, President Trump will have to respond. And if I had a crystal ball, if I could predict based on the information that's been given so far, based on the developments so far, I would say that Kim Jong-un will continue with the missile strikes, continue with the nuclear program. There will be a limited intervention by the United States, whether that be airstrikes, whether that be some sort of targeted strike by special forces raids or a decapitation attempt against the North Korean regime. And I think China will be forced to take larger action. And I think that's the goal of the Trump foreign policy in Southeast Asia, is with limited pressure, with limited military pressure on North Korea, China will be forced to take care of the North Korea situation and really bear the burden of that. And there were rumors that there were some 100,000 and so troops on the North Korean border. There were reports that there were 25,000 that were ready to be mobilized, some dubious claims that there were 150,000 troops on the border. Either way, if this North Korean situation implodes at Trump's hands, China will be the ones that have to take care of it. So I think that's what he's banking on, and I think that's how it'll play out.
Now, I agree with you, Nick. I think they'll keep testing things, and I think there will be a point at which we're forced to do something militarily. I wonder if we might just do something more serious in the sense of, if I don't have the intelligence personally, but if they're as close as I've read to actually miniaturizing nuclear weapons and having ICBMs so that they can put them on top of an ICBM and hit the continental United States, I wonder if the Trump administration doesn't just see this as like, this is our opportunity to have like a big military strike and get rid of as much of that nuclear infrastructure as we can. And I wonder if there's this calculation, well, if we do the limited strike and then things get kind of weird and then we can't really do another strike after that, have we blown our opportunity to like just take out what we can take out? But it sounds like you think they're going to go more limited first and not for like a big initial strike if there's a military strike.
Well, I say limited not in that it won't be going after their total nuclear arsenal, but limited in the sense that it won't be a ground invasion like we saw in Iraq or Afghanistan. I think it's and when I say limited, I mean it would be only for the clear objectives of destroying the nuclear program and the Kim Jong-un. Because then you have to consider that, unlike the Middle East, China has to take care of North Korea. So we could go in there, make a mess, do some form of regime change, and it's going to be up to China to pick up the pieces ultimately. So I think that'll be what the Trump Pentagon and Trump White House are banking on there.
Well, Nick, really appreciate all your observations about everything going on. Thank you so much for calling in. Now, if people want to watch your show tonight, what are you going to be talking about?
Well, we'll be talking about North Korea. We'll be talking about what's going on in the UK. They're calling for a snap election, and we'll be talking about, of course, the Buy American, Hire American. And thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me come on the show and share my thoughts.
A pleasure. We'd love to have you come on again sometime, Nick. And also, where can people follow you on Twitter if they want to follow you?
They can follow me at Nick J. Fuentes, Fuentes.
Great. Thank you so much, Nick. Look forward to your show tonight. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too.
That was Nick Fuentes. You can watch Nick Fuentes' show on Right Side Broadcasting tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern, and every weeknight. Smart guy, that Nick Fuentes. So we have time check. 11 minutes until President Trump's speech in Wisconsin, and he's also going to be signing an executive order there. And he is Micah, my producer, had just told me he is on the ground there in. Can I pronounce this right, Micah? Is it Kenosha? What did I say before? Kenosha. I'm going to go with Kenosha, not Kenosha. But again, feel free to correct me. And he's on the ground, so it looks like he's on schedule, at least within reasonable scheduling parameters. So I'm guessing we will start either on or close to the 3:20 p.m. Eastern start time. We'll bring it to you right when it happens, and we will come back for the post-show. We'd love to hear your comments either on the pre-show or the post-show. If you'd like, write in. Tell me what you're thinking about what's going on with either this Buy American, Hire American executive order, or North Korea, or any of the other big events of the day. And you can reach me at Lookner on Twitter, information on your screen right now, or steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. Also, if you enjoy our coverage of events like this, we try to give you an alternative to the mainstream media, so you don't have to watch the stuff on CNN or MSNBC or wherever. If you enjoy our coverage on our shows, like the Nick Fuentes Show at night and Wayne Dupree Show, and we cover the President Trump's rallies, and we go there and we interview the crowds. If you enjoy that coverage, please consider donating, because we really do rely on your donations to stay on the air. Without your donations, we cannot stay on the air. Our revenue is basically your donations and YouTube ad revenue, and for reasons which I went into length explaining yesterday, the YouTube ad revenue is even less now than it used to be. So we really are reliant on your donations. Very easy to donate. Just go to the chat. One way you can donate is in the chat room next to this broadcast. There's a $sign at the bottom of the chat room. So just click on the $sign at the bottom of the chat room, and you can donate that way. Also, if you want to make a recurring donation, you can get neat free stuff and rewards from Right Side Broadcasting. So if you want to know about that, go to www.patreon.com/RSBN. Patreon is Patreon. www.patreon.com. It's on the screen right now, /RSBN. And you can read about the different goodies and gifts and rewards you can get for different levels of donation. We really appreciate your donations. They keep us on the air, and we enjoy and we really value the ability to provide you with an alternative to the mainstream media. And thank you to the moderators for moderating today and every day moderating the chat. Much appreciated. So I'm going to check here my Twitter and make sure I'm not ignoring messages that people have written in. Let's see here. I see some comments. I'm trying to... there's comments in response to my tweets and comments in response to this broadcast, so I'm trying to sort through them. I'm going to read, well, this is a comment from Parade Driver, and I don't know if Parade Driver, you meant this to be on the show, but you commented on it. You commented about, sent a comment in about the Georgia election going on today. There's a special election in Georgia to replace Tom Price's House seat because Tom Price left to become the Secretary of Health and Human Services. And the election today, there's this question of, so if you add up all the Republicans running in the polls, they add up to more than the big Democrat running, but there's this question of will the big Democrat running, the most popular Democrat, get more than 50%? Because if he does, there's no election. In theory, if no one gets 50%, there's another election after this with the top two vote getters. But the worry on the Republican side is that the Democrat will get more than 50% because Republicans will stay home and also Republicans will split their vote. But President Trump actually tweeted out a couple tweets in the last couple days about this election in Georgia, encouraging Republicans to get out and vote in Georgia. So this election is going on today in Georgia. We will see what happens. But what Parade Driver said, a lot has changed since November. I expect a record number of voters here in Georgia. Oh, Parade Driver, you're in Georgia, aren't you? And Parade Driver says, prediction, Ossoff, who's the prominent Democrat running, doesn't get majority needed today, then loses to Republican in runoff. And so thank you, Parade Driver, for writing it. And just so people are aware, a bunch of the media is so excited about this because, like, it's potentially something which could seem bad for Trump. So they're so excited to report on this that possibly this could be a bad sign for Trump if the Republicans lose this seat in Georgia. But I just want to point, and when I've seen a lot of media report this as like, this is a totally strong Republican seat and it should never be this close, and it's so close, and if they lose, it's just terrible for Trump. Now, I do want to point out that in the presidential election, in this district, President Trump only beat Hillary Clinton by 2 points. So the fact that this will be a close election in itself doesn't signal that, like, the country is turning on Trump. Because again, he only won this district by 2 percentage points in the actual presidential election. So just want to throw that out there. That's going on today, though. And, now Miss Apropos writes in, it's Kenosha. Is it Kenosha? This is something I should have just figured out before I went on the air, but it didn't occur to me to figure it out. So I'm going to say Kenosha now because Miss Apropos wrote in. I hope you're not steering me wrong, Miss Apropos. We have 5 minutes, by the way, until President Trump's speech in Wisconsin. He's going to speak in Kenosha at Snap-on Inc. I think that's the name of it. I think I got that right, that it's Snap-on Inc. I'll double check that. Let me double check that here. Yes, Snap-on Inc. They manufacture tools in Kenosha, Wisconsin. He's going to speak there, and he's also going to sign the executive order. I believe he's going to sign the executive order there, but they could do this thing where he talks about the executive order and then signs it somewhere else. So we'll see what happens. I don't know. Also, I'm not sure, will anybody else from the cabinet be there? It's in Wisconsin. Will there be Congress people there? Will Paul Ryan perhaps be there? Who knows? I never know in advance who's going to be at these. It's like this. It's Kenosha. We've had that confirmed from Micah, Micah Messer, our producer. Thank you, Micah, for confirming. So we'll see who shows up. We'll see what President Trump says. We'll see if he signs the actual executive order there or signs it later. He could have signed it, but he could have signed it 5 minutes before the speech he makes. We'll see. We'll see. Also, just to update you, in case you hadn't heard, the person who was the Facebook shooter from this weekend who streamed this awful killing of an elderly man, he streamed this in the Cleveland area live on Facebook Live. He actually was found dead this morning. He was recognized at a McDonald's by drive-through workers when he was going through the drive-through in Pennsylvania, and I believe they alerted the police, and then the police came. There was a chase, and the driver, the shooter, pulled over and killed himself. So that happened this morning. Glad that he's not out threatening the public anymore, but a very sad story, that killing that happened this weekend. And he said on Facebook Live he murdered a lot of other people, but the police have said there's no evidence of that yet so far. So we have only a couple minutes here until President Trump's speech. We'll be bringing it to you live. I'm just calling my email up here, checking my email. We have a comment here. This is from Sean Gillum. Sean from New York, New York. Sean writes in, Trump needs to speak directly to the people more often. He needs to directly address / fight this clear attempt to drive a wedge between him and his base voters being perpetrated by the lamestream media, calling him a flip-flopper. From Sean Gillum. Sean, thank you for writing in. So you think President Trump needs to speak to his people more often. Now this week, he's having this speech today, and on Thursday, there's a press conference he's giving with the Italian Prime Minister. Probably he'll take a few questions at that press conference. But he has in the past done rallies. We, of course, would like to see him do more rallies because we love to go and cover them. So if he does, we will cover them. But also, I think President Trump, he tries to speak directly to the people through his Twitter account. He said that before, that he uses that to do it. But you think, Sean, he should give more speeches because you think, the media is not, you say they're attempting to drive a wedge between him and his voters, the media. So it's an interesting thought. Nothing's preventing him from speaking more to people. He could give a speech every day if he wanted to, or give rallies. I mean, rallies can be expensive, but he could give more rallies or talk more from the White House. So we'll see if he does it, Sean. Maybe at a certain point he'll feel like he needs to do that. I think during the health bill debate, when President Trump was trying to help the health bill get pushed through Congress, he did do like 2 or 3 rallies. I remember 2. Did he do 3? I can't remember. But I'm getting a note here from Micah. Oh, okay. Yes, and so we'll see if he does speak more to the people. He's done it before. We'll see what happens in the future. Thank you, Sean, for writing in. I also, before President Trump's speech, want to give a special shout out. We got an amazing, generous donation for $1,000 yesterday from Trinidad Scorpion. He wrote in and he said he's a big fan of Right Side Broadcasting. He appreciates us as an alternative to the mainstream media, and he didn't want his personal name given out or anything. But we wanted to, this is not his personal name. His nickname is Trinidad Scorpion, but we want to give a special thank you and a shout out to Trinidad Scorpion for giving us that donation. As I said before, it's not like we just have all this money and we fund the network and then we make all this extra money from donations and everything else. We're just really trying to stay on the air here. Our goal is to make enough money that we can keep broadcasting and keep staying on the air. We have a very small staff here. We try to minimize expenses in whatever way we can. And we just want to stay on the air. Our goal is really to be on the air, giving you this coverage and giving you an alternative to the mainstream media, an alternative to outlets which are trying to push a view on you. We don't try to push a certain view on you. We want to give you full information, and we want to let you decide about how to think about the issues of the day. We don't want to tell you what to think. And we consider you, our audience, part of our network, and that's why we always like to have your comments and sometimes your calls, and we take your questions, and we feel like this is a community here. And so when we got this donation for Trinidad Scorpion, that helps us do that. And we just want to give a special thank you to Trinidad Scorpion for that really generous donation. So thank you, Trinidad Scorpion. But you don't have to donate that much to help us. If you have like a small donation, that helps us too. So if you do feel like donating and you want to help us stay on the air, as I said before, either click on the $ at the bottom of the chat room or check out www.patreon.com/RSBN. And if you go to Patreon, our Patreon site, you can see ways to set up a monthly donation for whatever you want and get rewards for doing so from RSBN as a thank you for your donation. So Trinidad Scorpion, thank you again. That was really nice of you. Okay, it is 3:21 Eastern Time. Any moment now, President Micah has an eye on it out there in the outside the studio. Well, he's in the office, but outside this studio, and he's keeping an eye on it. And as soon as President Trump walks toward the podium, we will be covering it live. And join us after the speech. We'll come back and we'll do a bit of post-show where we'll talk about what President Trump said, take your comments. We could even take calls in the post-show maybe. We'll see if we can set that up. And so we'd love to hear from you. And if during President Trump's speech you have any feedback, and you want to have me read your comment on the Air on the Post show, write to me during the speech. Go to @Lookner on Twitter, @LOOKNER, or email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. Speaking of email, let me just check my email. Okay, I'm all caught up there, and I'm checking your comments to make sure I am caught up on those. Let's see here. Now, this is a comment.
Thank you very much. These are great, great people, and these are real workers. I love the workers. We're doing a good job for the workers, and I'm thrilled to be back in Wisconsin. The optimism in this room is the same incredible spirit that is sweeping across our country, and even greater than that great day in November when I won the state of Wisconsin and when we won the presidency. That was a great day, I have to say. That was a great day, and thank you, Wisconsin. No administration has accomplished more in the first 90 days. That includes on military, on the border, on trade, on regulation, on law enforcement. We love our law enforcement, and on government reform. Today, we're building on that optimism, and I'm proud to announce that we are about to take bold new steps to follow through on my pledge to buy American and hire American. I can't think of a better place to make this announcement than right here at Snap-on. Just took a tour of the company. Good place, by the way. It's doing well, too. Standing among the workers who make the tools that will rebuild our nation. Your craftsmanship is incredible. It's a pleasure to see my good friend, Governor Scott Walker. He has been such a big help. He has been so incredible. Stand up, Scott. Governor Walker. As well as Senator Ron Johnson. We worked hard together. Thank you, Ron. And although he could not be here today, my thanks go to Speaker Ryan, who's represented this city for nearly 2 decades in Congress. And you know where he is? He's with NATO. And so he has a good excuse. And I said, Ron, make sure these countries start paying their bills a little bit more. You know, they're way, way behind, Ron. We have to do, I'm going to talk to you about that, Ron. But Paul, you're over with NATO, get them to pay their bills. I think that, and Ron, you have to work on that too. And Scott, you're right here in Wisconsin. You don't have to bother. We'll keep you right here. For a little while at least. Also with us is a famous local resident, the pride of Kenosha, Reince Priebus, my chief of staff. Where is Reince? Where is he? What a good man. There he is. In fact, we flew over his house on the way up, and he got all excited. He's taking pictures of us. Rice went to school right here, just about a mile away, where he took his wife Sally to the prom. And that was a match made in heaven. Very nice. I also want to thank Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin for being with us today. Secretary Mnuchin is working to put together a tax reform plan to make our industry more competitive and also to provide a level playing field for our workers. We don't have a level playing field, believe me. You're going to have one very soon. And our tax reform and tax plan is coming along very well. It's going to be out very soon. We're working on health care, and we're going to get that done too. Our Education Secretary, Betsy DeVos, is also here. Where's Betsy? She's around here someplace. Stand up. Thank you, Betsy. Secretary DeVos is working to ensure that our workers are trained for the skilled technical jobs that will, in the future, power our country. I'm excited to be joined today by students from Gateway Technical College and Remember the college president, Brian Albrecht. Thank you. Great job. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Your partnership with Snap-on is a great example of why vocational education is the way of the future. When I was growing up in Queens, we had vocational schools. They were great. We don't have schools like that so much anymore, but we're bringing them back, vocational schools. These are very talented people that love that type of work, and it's great work. It really is great work. So vocational schools are going to be a big factor in the Trump administration. Together, we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that more products are stamped with those wonderful words, made in the USA. The old days we used to use it. We don't use it so much anymore. We're going to start using it again. Made in the USA. For too long, we've watched as our factories have been closed and our jobs have been sent to other faraway lands. We've lost 70,000 factories since China joined the World Trade Organization. And you've seen that. You've heard about it. 70,000. The World Trade Organization, another one of our disasters. But this election, the American people voted to end the theft of American prosperity. They voted to bring back their jobs and to bring back their dreams into our country. That's why I'm here today. In just a few moments, I will be signing a Buy American and Hire American executive order. You haven't heard about that in a long time in this country. With this action, we are sending a powerful signal to the world. We're going to defend our workers, protect our jobs, and finally, put America first. I see all the Make America Great Again hats, so that's a good crowd. Those are good hats. Through the years, Snap-on tools have been at the center of our industrial life. Your tools have fixed the cars our families depend on. They've sailed with the fleets that patrol the oceans. They've fixed the planes that cross our skies. And Snap-on tools have reached the heights of space, used by astronauts in orbit to carry out their very, very important work. And I don't know if you noticed, recently I signed a very big order. We're going to spend again on NASA space program. And that's something we need, and we also need it psychologically, but it's going to be very exciting. For decades, this company has served the needs of American workers. It's time we had a federal government that does the same. The Buy and Hire American order I'm about to sign will help protect workers and students like those of you in the audience today. This historic action declares that the policy of our government is to aggressively promote and use American-made goods and to ensure that American labor is hired to do the job. It's America first. You better believe it. It's time. It's time, right? It's time. First, we will fully monitor, uphold, and enforce our Buy American laws, which we haven't done. Buy American laws require that when the federal government buys, builds, or funds a project, domestic goods and products should be used. But over the years, these Buy American standards have been gutted by excessive waivers and reckless exemptions. The result has been countless jobs and countless contracts that have been lost to cheap, subsidized, and low-quality foreign goods. With this order, I'm directing every single agency in our government to strictly uphold our Buy American laws, to minimize the use of waivers, and to maximize Made in America content in all federal projects. It's time. And for the first time ever, we are going to crack down on foreign bidders that used dumped steel and other subsidized goods to take contracts from workers like you. They take them away, and they've been doing it for a long time. Not going to happen anymore. We are finally standing up for our workers and for our companies. In short, this order declares that American projects should be made with American goods. No longer are we going to allow foreign countries to cheat our producers and our workers out of federal contracts. Everyone in my administration will be expected to enforce every last Buy American provision on behalf of the American worker. And we are going to investigate every single trade deal that undermines these provisions. Secondly, we are going to enforce the higher American rules that are designed to protect jobs and wages of workers in the United States. We believe jobs must be offered to American workers first. Does that make sense? Right now, widespread abuse in our immigration system is allowing American workers of all backgrounds to be replaced by workers brought in from other countries to fill the same job for sometimes less pay. This will stop. American workers have long called for reforms to end these visa abuses, and today their calls are being answered for the first time. That includes taking the first steps to set in motion a long overdue reform of H-1B visas. Right now, H-1B visas are awarded in a totally random lottery, and that's wrong. Instead, they should be given to the most skilled and highest paid applicants, and they should never, ever be used to replace Americans. No one can compete with American workers when they are given a fair and level playing field, which has not happened for decades. We're using every tool at our disposal to restore the American dream. In fact, when it comes to wasteful, destructive, job-killing regulations, we are going to use a tool you all know very well. It's called the sledgehammer. It's what we're going to use. We're also going to stand up for our dairy farmers in Wisconsin. And I've been reading about it, and I've been talking about it for a long time, and that demands really immediately fair trade with all of our trading partners, and that includes Canada. Because in Canada, some very unfair things have happened to our dairy farmers and others, and we're going to start working on that with Ron and with Scott and with Paul and with all of your representatives. What's happened to you is very, very unfair. It's another typical one-sided deal against the United States, and it's not going to be happening for long. So, Scott, you and Ron and myself and Paul and everybody else, we're going to get together, and we're going to call Canada, and we're going to say, what happened? And they might give us an answer, but we're going to get the solution, not just the answer, okay? Because we know what the solution is, all right? And if you guys can't do it, we'll bring maybe Reince. Reince, you ready, Reince? We better bring Reince back. Now, we'll get that done. We're going to work on that very hard. We're going to work on it immediately, in fact, starting today. It's a terrible thing that happened to the farmers of Wisconsin. The fact is, NAFTA has been a disaster for the United States, a complete and total disaster. And we're going to do some things. And we have all sorts of rules and regulations that are horrendous. Like we wanted started to negotiate with Mexico immediately. And we have these provisions where you have to wait long periods of time. You have to notify Congress. And after you notify Congress, you have to get certified. And then you can't speak to them for 100 days. The whole thing is ridiculous. NAFTA has been very, very bad for our country. It's been very, very bad for our companies and for our workers. And we're going to make some very big changes, or we are going to get rid of NAFTA for once and for all. Cannot continue like this, believe me. Big things will be happening on trade with other countries over the coming months, and I mean very big. We're also working with Congress on tax reform and simplification, and we're on time if we get that health care approval. So press every one of you congressmen, press everybody, because we want to get that approval. And it just makes the tax reform easier, and it makes it better, and it's going to make it steeper. It's going to be bigger, and that's what we want to do. So we're in very good shape on tax reform. We have the concept of the plan. We're going to be announcing it very soon. But health care, we have to get the health care taken care of. And as soon as health care takes care of, we are going to march very quickly. You're going to watch. We're going to surprise you. Right, Steve Mnuchin? Right? Secretary of Treasury. I see Sean, and stand up, Sean. Let's stand up. You know, I had no idea. I was told a year ago, he's been so great to me. I was told a year ago, he's like a world champion climber, climbs the trees. And after that, every time I look at him now differently. I'm very impressed with that, Sean. And he's also very good on television and very helpful. Thank you, man, thank you. We'll be making big investments in rebuilding our military and repairing our badly depleted infrastructure. And that'll happen soon also. Infrastructure, big infrastructure bill. Probably use it with something else that's a little bit harder to get approved in order to get that approved. But infrastructure is coming, and it's coming fast. New ships, bridges, tunnels, and airplanes will be constructed with American hands, American steel, and yes, American tools. As we work to restore the American dream at home, we're also working to restore America's standing abroad. That means strengthening our partnerships and ensuring that our friends and allies pay their fair share. And that very much includes, as I've already said in my little statement to Paul, it also includes the NATO companies and countries. They are really sort of letting us down in that one respect, and we don't want people taking advantage of the United States, and that's not going to happen for very much longer. I'm going over there very soon, and we're going to have it, and everybody's going to be paying, and we're going to be a much happier country. We're going to be a much happier world. No matter the circumstances, everyone will know we act from this core conviction that America's strength must be unmatched, and its first priority, unquestioned, the safety and security of our citizens. This is the surest path to a more peaceful and prosperous world for us all. Together, we can build a better future in the spirit of this company's earliest days. Great company, great history. I recently learned that decades ago in the 1920s, when your salesman entered a dusty repair shop or stained, a nice, beautiful stained garage floor, which I've seen many of, he would find a spot to lay out a beautiful green felt mat. The people of the company know what that means. And on that green felt mat, he would carefully place a gleaming set of new Snap-on tools. The founders of this company wanted their customers to know that the tools of the mechanic were just as important as the tools of the doctor, the dentist, the politician, or the business leader, and that his craft was a noble, noble craft, as noble as any. This is a wonderful story about your company and its Wisconsin heritage. And Wisconsin has a truly great heritage, and it's led by incredible people. But it's also a story that tells us a lot about the American spirit. In America, we honor work. We honor grit. We honor craftsmanship. We honor the men and women who turn dreams into reality with their own two hands. In America, we honor all of you. We are a nation of builders. We are the country that dug out the Panama Canal, that put a man on the face of the moon, and that linked our cities with majestic railroads and curving highways. We are the country that is always on the cusp of the next invention. But we can only get there with all of you. We can only restore this nation we love so much by working and building with all of you. We can only get there together. We are the one people sharing one destiny, saluting one great, beautiful American flag. I'm thrilled to be here today to celebrate our great American heritage and to proudly embrace our great American future. I want to thank the people of Wisconsin for doing so much for me. That's why I came back here, not just for the company, frankly, for the people of Wisconsin. You have been so incredible to me and my administration, and we will never, ever let you down. God bless you. God bless the American worker. God bless the American dream. And God bless the United States of America. Thank you all very much. Tremendous honor. Thank you. Thank you very much. Get ready, everybody. This is a big one. Get ready. How about having some Scott, Ron, and everybody? Come on up. Come on up. Lieutenant Governor, come on up. Come on up. Who should I give the pen to is the big question, right? I think one of them should get it. Yeah. Come on up. Great representatives. All right. Congratulations. Come on up. Here's the bar. Here. Come on up. Yeah. Come on, guys. Okay. This is a tremendous honor for me. The only question is who gets the pen. That's what I'm trying to see.
Hello, that was President Trump speaking in Kenosha, Wisconsin, about an executive order he just signed. You just saw him sign it. The executive order is a Buy American, Hire American executive order. The Buy American part is telling federal agencies to strictly enforce the Buy American rules in place, and it will also look at trade agreements with other countries to make sure there are not loopholes which are preventing buying American provisions from being from happening and being fully strictly enforced. And in terms of the Hire American part, It has to do with H-1B visas. I'm not sure if that's all of the Hire American part or some of it, but a big part of the Hire American part of the executive order is to try to change how the H-1B visa program is run as much as it can be changed by executive order and not changing the law in a way that ensures that people being brought in by H-1B visas are not taking jobs from Americans. So don't have an exact copy of the executive order here myself that I can look at, but that is what President Trump said and what we've heard reports about. We've also heard reports about what would be in the executive order. I am Steve Lookner. This is Right Side Broadcasting. This is our post-coverage of President Trump's speech. We would like to hear your thoughts. What do you think of the speech? Is there stuff you liked, you didn't like, stuff you thought was notable? If you have thoughts on the speech and you'd like to share them with our viewers, either write me at Lookner on Twitter at LOOKNER. You can direct message me there, or email me, steve.lookner@rsbn.tv, or you can call in. We'd love to hear your voice. Call in and make your views known. The number is 202-470-0049. We're going to be on the air for a little bit here doing post-coverage of the President Trump press briefing. And if you enjoy our coverage of events as an alternative to the mainstream media, please consider donating. If you want to make a donation to Right Side, we rely on your donations to stay on the air. If you want to make a donation, just click on the $ at the bottom of the chat room while you're watching. Just click on that $. You can make a donation that way. Or you can go to www.patreon.com/RSBN. I'm going to check my Twitter. Before I talk about the speech, I want to just make sure I'm all caught up on your comments here. I think I'm caught up. So, one thing I want to point out that I noticed during the speech is when President Trump talked about the Hire American part of the executive order. So I don't have a copy of the executive order, but something he said, which I found especially interesting, was this. He said that he hinted that the executive order might say something about changing the H-1B. Okay, one second. H-1B lottery system. But before we talk about that, we have a caller on the line, Brandon from California. Hello, Brandon. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Thank you for calling in, Brandon. What did you want to talk about today?
The Snap-on tool situation. I'm kind of a weekend mechanic, and there's no way I could afford to buy all these Snap-on tools. And everyone has this idea that it's going to be like a great thing. I just don't understand. They're not going to cut my taxes enough where I have the extra money in my pocket to afford a $200 set for like 5 wrenches. When you can go and buy all the Chinese ones, you can get all the tools you need. They're not obviously the best tools, but I can get the job done. So if they increase the prices on that stuff, what is the average person going to do to afford that stuff?
So Brandon, a couple of things here. First of all, so I haven't used Snap-on tools, but you've used them and you say they're more expensive than like other tools, especially foreign tools. So that's one point you're making. Thank you for making that point. And then you're also saying you're concerned that, so we talk about buying American stuff generally, and President Trump wants us to do that. But you're making a more general point, it sounds like, that in some cases, foreign-made stuff is less expensive. And I think you might be saying something like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but President Trump is saying the American government should buy American. But if the American government is building stuff, say building a building or building a dam or something, and the foreign material is a lot cheaper, then if the raw materials for the federal construction project are purchased from America rather than foreign materials, you're worried that, well, that'll make the whole project more expensive and then our taxes will go up, correct?
Well, no, I'm concerned about the average person.
Okay.
I guess on those big jobs, they would make sense, It might drive the cost up a little bit, but to keep the work from our country, that's fine. But I'm concerned if they do something where the stuff from China coming in is going to go up in cost.
I see.
Where right now it's cheap. If it sounds good, but it's just for the average person, we're not going to have more money in our pocket.
So
that's where I get concerned. If it will be affected, I don't know if it will trickle down to there. I don't know everything about it, but cheap tools for me work out good because I do one little project here. I'm not making money. Snap-on tools are an investment. If you're a mechanic, it's worth it because they are very good. But if regular people don't have an option to do that. Well, I just get concerned about that.
Okay, Brandon. So your concern is more like when President Trump talks about, adjusting NAFTA and maybe, taking action against foreign countries who he feels are trading unfairly with us. If something like tariffs happens and we put in tariffs on foreign goods that are coming into this country and it raises the price of those goods, your worry is that there's people like yourself who rely on cheap foreign goods of some sort because you can't afford the more expensive ones. You're saying with tools it could be Snap-on tools are the more expensive ones, and you're saying that there's a cost to making foreign goods more expensive, is that it hurts American consumers. Am I getting your point right there?
Yes, that is exactly my point. Like, I don't like buying the Chinese stuff. I don't like to support it. I'd like to support Snap-on because their stuff is better. But for me, there's just no way I can afford something that's double the price to do the same job. Like, I don't make money off my tools.
So I think it's a very good point you're making, Brandon, which is, protectionism could, an argument for protectionism, like having tariffs on foreign goods, is that, well, it makes more people here buy American stuff, but it also can raise prices for American consumers. Now, perhaps one thing President Trump can do to address this issue that you're raising, this important issue, is I think one thing President Trump has said he wants to do is lower the corporate income tax. And perhaps if he can lower corporate taxes, that would be a way for, if he lowers taxes on American companies, that would allow them to lower their prices more, maybe. So maybe if President Trump was on this phone call with us right now, he might say, hey, I'm going to try to lower corporate tax rates, and that'll allow us to lower the prices of goods like that. So, but I do think, Brandon, you do make an important point, and I think as President Trump considers what to do about the, foreign goods coming in and trying to promote American goods and buying American goods, you also want to make sure you don't make things worse for average American consumers like yourself, who sometimes buy the foreign goods because they're cheaper. So I think it's a very healthy point to keep in mind, and I appreciate you calling in and sharing that point with our viewers.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate what you're doing, and I love all the haters in the comments. Oh, thanks for allowing the comments. It's a lot of fun.
Thanks a lot, Brandon. Thanks so much.
Have a good one.
So that was Brandon calling in from California. And Brandon, I think, is talking about the chat room. And our chat room, thank you to the moderators for moderating the chat room. Our chat room is a lively place to discuss the issues. I would encourage you to check out the chat room both on YouTube and also at rsbn.tv. We have a chat room always going on there. You can find it. Go to one of the recent events and you can find where the current chat is going on. But the moderators, the one thing I can tell you about the chat room is you're not going to get people swearing and a lot of hate speech and trolls and stuff like that, because our moderators do a great job of weeding that out and getting rid of those people. But what you can do is go there and talk about the different issues and talk about express your views. So I encourage you to check out the chat room while you're there. And if you're in the chat room and you feel like it, and you feel like helping us out, because we rely on your donations to stay on the air. We can't stay on the air without your donations, without your support. Feel free, if you feel like it when you're in the chat room, to go down to the bottom of the chat room, click on the $sign, and give us a donation. Your donation helps us stay on the air, helps us provide our news coverage to you. So we are talking about President Trump's speech in Wisconsin, where he signed his Buy American, Hire American executive order. If you'd like, we'd love to hear your comments about the speech, about the executive order, about anything else going on in the news today that President Trump has to deal with. You can call 202-470-0049. Did I get that right? I think I did. Micah, correct me if I didn't. 202-470-0049. Or you can direct message me on Twitter @Lookner. Direct message me on Twitter @Lookner, or email me steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. I was going to make a point before the call that I want to get back to, but I want to, JC says, please, Micah, JC says he's hearing music on the broadcast. It's gone. Okay, good. All right, thank you, JC, for the heads up. Appreciate it. And Miss Apropos, yeah, so thank you. People wrote in. Micah took care of that, so Micah's on it. Thank you, Micah. So a point I was making before the phone call was that I thought was interesting in the speech is President Trump was talking about the H-1B system and how it's not being used appropriately, and he wants to change it. And if I can, I talked about this in the pre-show, but let me try to really briefly summarize this. H-1B visas were created to let companies in America bring in highly educated workers to do specialized jobs where there was a shortage of Americans who were available to do these jobs. So for example, we could imagine some tech company that needed this person with really specialized computer knowledge, and there's only so many of them in America, and to help that American tech company, what they could do is use an H-1 visa to bring in a foreign person for a few years who has that specialized computer knowledge to work at their American company. That's the basic idea of what H-1 visas were created for. The problem is, in recent years, what's happening is companies are using them to bring in foreign workers to do jobs that Americans want to do, but what they do is, because foreign workers will work for less than Americans in a number of cases, they will bring in foreign workers on H-1B visas and hire them to do the exact same job an American is already doing, but they'll pay them a lot less than the American, and then in some cases they'll actually even make the American train the foreign replacement for them, and then they will fire their Americans and then bring in the H-1B visa people to do the jobs for less money. And that's been a problem with H-1B visas that's been happening. And one thing President Trump said that was interesting is, right now, H-1B visas, because there's more applications to get these visas than there are visas, they're handed out by lottery system. So what's been happening recently is a number of Indian outsourcing companies have been flooding the lottery with applications for their workers that they want to bring in from foreign countries, namely India, and they win the lottery in a lot of cases. A lot of the lottery slots go to these Indian outsourcing companies, which bring in these workers that in many cases replace American workers. So what President Trump said in his speech, he said it sounded like he was saying he wanted to change the lottery system. So it sounded like President Trump was saying, like, he doesn't want there to be a pure lottery on. Okay, and in a second we're going to go to a phone call, but to finish this point, what President Trump seemed to be saying is this lottery system isn't working. Now so perhaps I don't know what the executive order says. Does it just say change the lottery system or try to change it? Also, I'm not sure, is the lottery system, I don't know if I'm guessing it's not part of the actual legislation, because if the lottery system's in the law, an executive order can't change that. But if the lottery system is just part of how the executive branch puts the law into practice, then that could be changed. And maybe what President Trump wants to do is something like, no longer will we give these spots out by lottery. We're going to look at the different people applying for the H-1B visas, and rather than lottery off the spots, we're going to give them to companies that we feel are not going to take American jobs through them, through these visas. So that would be an important change, but I have to read more about this proposed change and what it involves and everything. But it was just a part of the speech that I thought was noteworthy. Okay, so we have on the phone Carla now. I forget, Carla, where you're calling from. Where are you calling from today? Micah told me and I forgot.
Hi, Steve. I'm calling from Texas.
Great. Thank you for calling in so much, Carla. Appreciate you calling into the show. What did you want to talk about today?
Well, a couple things. One is I'm quite thrilled that the Trump administration will be focusing on bringing back vocational schools and colleges, because those types of focused training schools provide a career path and a really excellent job skills for so many different types of things like plumbing, electricians, HVAC, automotive, and welding. And vocational schools are a really valuable alternative to a four-year university. I myself went through a four-year university, and I can honestly tell you, at this point now, in my mid-30s, I would have preferred to go through a vocational school and take a skill like welding, for example, because welders are so needed. They're needed all over the country, and I'm still in student debt, and my resume goes into a stack of other resumes, and I'm just very excited about the vocational schools, and that's what I would want my children to go to. I want them to figure out what they're interested in and apply their skill. And sometimes people need a four-year degree, but not usually.
Thank you, Carla. And let me say, the point you're making now about vocational schools, I've heard some other commentators make this point over the last few years, and they have said there's a view out there that we in this society in general basically encourage everybody to go get this 4-year liberal arts college degree, and we don't put enough emphasis on this other option of going to some sort of vocational school after high school, and in doing so, the people who make this view, who make this point, they claim that we shortchange American young people because, as you said, there are a lot of good jobs out there that you can get by having this training, this specialized training. And if you just go to like a liberal arts college, you're not going to get that training. And these are, in many cases, well-paying jobs. And I know there's a view out there that says, it's seen as like bad to encourage students to do this kind of thing. But there is this other view out there, which is more like what you say, which is that these vocational schools can provide a valuable education and provide a great path to like a good paying job. And perhaps we should be encouraging these things more, these kind of schools more. So I appreciate you calling in and saying that. Now, you said you had another point you wanted to make, so I wanted to give you a chance to make that point as well.
Sure. Before I do that, I want to follow up on what you just said, because you said that very well.
Thank you.
In the last 2 weeks, I was finally able to buy a home. My husband and I scraped and saved. We bought an older home, and in the past 2 weeks, what could go wrong has gone wrong. So we've had to have electricians, we've had to have plumbers, we've had to have HVAC people, we've had to have construction people. And I have spoken with every one of the workers who've come out here, and they were so grateful that they had their jobs and their skill training versus their friends who went to a 4-year college, got a degree, no training in particular for a career path. And the second thing to tell you is that I have a friend who works in HR at a law firm, and literally she gets resumes faxed to her all day long. She said her stack of resumes are physically more than 2 feet tall. And so I have lived seeing the differences. So thank you for what you've said about vocational schools, because I believe personally it's become propaganda to brainwash children that that's their only path. So thank you for what you've said. And then my last small point is to your caller from California who said that he can't afford to buy American-made tools. Well, I can tell you that I've bought cheap tools, and they're not good. They break. I didn't know anything about tools, but once I married my husband, he taught me, and he said it's better to buy one well-made quality tool at a time until you have a set of tools. And if you buy good tools, they will last you your lifetime. He said, if you go and buy these cheap tools from, overseas, they will break. And I have had that experience. So I will negate the fellow in California saying that he can't afford to buy American quality materials and tools, because if you buy cheap things, whether it's cheap clothing, cheap tools, cheap tires, you're going to buy them over and over and over, whereas if you buy something quality, they last longer. So that's my last point.
Thank you, Carla. And as to the tools, I think that's a perfectly reasonable argument to give to Brandon before. Now, Brandon might have an issue with your characterization of the tools he buys. Perhaps he thinks they're quality. That's a specialized tool debate, which I am not equipped to answer because I do not use tools that much. But I think you both make good points. And on the vocational schools, I just want to clarify that the point I think you're making is not that like, 4-year schools are liberal arts schools are terrible and no one should go to them. I think the point you're making is, look, that's not the only option, and that young people should consider another option, which is these vocational schools, because 4-year liberal arts schools might not be the best thing for everyone, and for some people, going to a vocational school really might be the best choice, and they might, in the long run, be happy they went there. So I hope I'm capturing what you're saying there when I say that. I think that's the point you're making.
You summed that up brilliantly. And thank you all at RSBN. I've been following you guys since the beginning, and you all are wonderful, hardworking people, and you're providing a very good alternative to get the truth out there. And I promote you everywhere and how I can with social media. And we also donate to you guys, so I hope everyone watching will also.
Wow, thank you so much, Carla. Thank you for watching and for your kind words and for your donation, and all of those things support us, and we do it all for you guys. Without you, we would not be here, and we do it for you and with you. So really appreciate all of that you've done to help us, and appreciate you calling in today. So thanks so much, Carla, and I'm glad you called in and shared your views with the viewers today. So thanks.
You're welcome, and have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Take care, Carla. That was Carla. We appreciate her call and appreciate her donation, by the way. As I've said before, if you want to donate and you're watching, we rely on your donations to stay on the air. Easy way to do it, click on the $ at the bottom of the chat room on YouTube, or go to www.patreon.com/RSBN. We are covering, this is the post show for the President Trump speech he made today in Wisconsin, in Kenosha, Wisconsin, just a few minutes ago, and he signed a Hire American, Buy American executive order. This is our post show, and we cover here, just in general, if you haven't joined us before, we cover all of President Trump's speeches, well, the public ones. If he makes a speech like to a private party, we can't cover that unless we're physically there. And we cover Sean Spicer's press briefings every day. He does them. We do a pre-show and a post-show for that. So tune in the future if you want to know when we're covering stuff. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Subscribe to us, and be sure to click the notifications bell when you subscribe, and that'll let you be able to tell YouTube to tell you whenever we have a video coming on. Also, follow us on Facebook at RSB Network, and you will hear the latest updates about Right Side Broadcasting. I want to check out my Twitter and make sure I'm caught up here, because I think I have some messages here. Let's see. Sightless Seer wrote in. You sent me a link, Sightless Seer, and you sent me, it says, the new executive order isn't up, but you can read the PDF of the executive order. If you have a better source, feel free to share with me. I will look at this later. I would like to look at this now, Sightless Seer, but if I looked at it now and sat here for 10 minutes reading it on the air, then people would get really, really bored. So, but thank you, Sightless Seer. I will check that out. Let's see here. Okay, caught up there. Getting my email open here. I have an email. Let me get to it. This is from C. Lettle. C. Lettle. That's the only name I see, so I'll say C. Lettle. C. Lettle writes, we could all afford Snap-on tools if we were paid what we should be and the American businesses were not hiring illegals. Both of these are done by business owners so they can make massive amounts of money. They care only about their money. President Trump said while campaigning that we have not had a raise in around 30 years compared to cost of living, I think he stated. So I like that the debate today has been focusing on the Snap-on tools and whether we can afford them or not. And what you're saying, C. Lettle, is you think that a big part of the reason we can't afford tools like that is because our immigration system is broken, and that we have immigrants coming in, illegal immigrants, you say, depressing wages. So, and I'm wondering if you might think also that some people think that legal immigration through the form of H-1B visas, because the program is being used wrongly, that depresses wages as well. So the general point you're making is that if we solve our immigration issues, that could help raise American wages. So appreciate you writing in, C. Lettle. I'm sorry I don't have your first name, but that's all I have from you. So thanks for writing in. We're going to stay on a few more minutes here. If you'd like to write in or call in, we'd love to hear your comments on what President Trump said today, his executive order, what's going on with the world. You can call at 202-470-0049, or direct message me on Twitter at Lookner, at Lookner, or Steve Lookner at rsbn.tv. Steve.Lookner at rsbn.tv. You can email me there. And there's one other thing I want to talk about from the speech that I had written down. Let's see here. I had written down that, as part of this speech, President Trump, this wasn't what his executive order. Okay, so we're going to take another call in 1 second. I just want to say, President Trump, one thing he said, it wasn't part of the executive order, but he did say there were going to be big changes to NAFTA. He said that. So we will see what he means by that in the coming weeks, I presume. But for now, we have, I think it's Jim in California. Michael will correct me if I got that wrong. Jim in California. Jim in California, hello, how are you?
Hi, I've been listening to you for a while, and I appreciate you guys' hard work.
Thank you.
And dedication. I've been in construction my whole adult life, and actually I started when I was 12. One thing I've learned is that since construction, some of the callers are correct. Part of the problem was the employers in construction, looking for cheap labor, found out that they could hire 2 or 3, sometimes 4 for the price of 1. So they would hire 2 or 3 illegals, and in place of a journeyman contractor who was making maybe $20 an hour, now they could make them pay them $2 under minimum wage and pocket the rest. So our biggest problems are technically is the employer. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be in construction. It could be in anything. The mentality of making more money and budgeting and hiring is like 2/3 of the budget of any construction. So payroll is very, very crucial to making the money. You have to lower the payroll. But to give you a point, Ford, in his infinite wisdom, doubled the average worker's paycheck from which at that time was around $250 a day. He doubled to 5, and he gave the 5-day work week and $8 work day. So you can enjoy the weekend and Sunday school and whatever for your family. My point was that in doing so, he created a viable middle class the first time in America. I have no problem paying people what they're worth, but I believe in a living wage, and you can usually find a living wage index as anywhere in a city. Trump said it before. The living wage in New York is different than San Diego, different than LA, different than Dallas, different than Key West, Florida. So, you're looking at all these different places. Living wage can make a difference, such as purchasing power and working. People do appreciate a living wage rather than just getting a menial paycheck. By doing that over time, it's not going to happen overnight, but over time, you'll create a viable middle class because people get promoted. They start buying things that they normally do, or save things. They save up for things, paying off bills, whatever. But also, to the other question is tools and everything else. I've learned this from years ago, is that you only buy the good stuff, and you don't buy stuff that you would normally. If you buy cheap stuff, you're going to get what you pay for. And believe you me, it doesn't pay when you have to go back 2 or 3 times buying the same socket wrench or socket or electric tool that fried the moment after you got it. So you only buy things that are of quality. I think Reagan once said that if you want a country wants to compete against America, make better things. Do better, create better items, compete that way. So I agree. Simply cheaper isn't going to do anything. If all it does is hurt everybody, and it creates a market for the other guy. It doesn't create a market for us.
Now, Jim, let me. I want to ask you real quick. So, So first of all, I appreciate you sharing both your opinion on your experience with both construction industry and also tools. What I'd like to ask you, you had mentioned that you said your experience in the construction industry was that the employers will, if they have the opportunity, they will hire multiple illegal immigrants for less wage than they would pay an American worker, and get more work out of the same payroll that way. So, given that you've seen that happen, do you think President Trump needs to clamp down more on illegal immigration? Is that what you'd want to see him do?
Well, yes, I believe that's a start. Everything's we went down this path over 40 years ago. We didn't just do this overnight in the last 8 years. We were headed this way over 40 years ago. So, if people want a better America, they have to work for it. It's not going to come cheap. It's not going to come easy. But you have to want it, and you have to expect hardship along the way. But in creating wealth, now the term creating wealth, it means that when people were working, we managed to budget within our means during that time frame when we were working. We haven't had a real pay increase in 20 years, and our cost of our ability to purchase is not there anymore. So it's going to take time. But once we create the wealth, then we're going to find that work is more easy to come by. Vocational aptitude and vocational training is a big plus. I had that growing up. So what's wrong with that? Why can't we have that again?
Great. Well, Jim, I really appreciate you calling in and sharing your views and giving us your experiences from the construction industry. So thanks for calling. Much appreciated.
No, thank you.
Have a good one, Jim.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you. That was Jim from California. So we are, this is a post show for the, excuse me, I need to take a drink of water. This is the post show for the President Trump speech and executive order signing in Wisconsin, which we just saw a little while ago. If you missed it or didn't see the beginning of it, feel free to go back and watch the beginning. We're on YouTube. You can go back and do that. You can watch it multiple times if you want. I want to say a thank you to Micah Messer, our producer today, who's been producing and arranging all the calls and everything. Thank you, Micah. And thank you again to the moderators out there who've been moderating the chat. We'll stay a little while longer on the air here. If you want to get in a comment, a last comment, or get in a phone call, our number is 202-470-0049. On Twitter, you can reach me at @Lookner, at LOOKNER, or you can email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. I should mention tonight's lineup at Right Side Broadcasting. Tune in at 8 p.m. for America First with Nick Fuentes. It's 8 p.m. Eastern. Nick actually called into our pre-show, if you didn't see it, and he gave lots of interesting and smart observations about the executive order and H-1B visas in North Korea, so you can go back and rewind that if you'd like. And at 9 p.m. we have the Wayne Dupree Show. You can watch Wayne Dupree here at Right Side Broadcasting, 9 p.m. Eastern. And Nick and Wayne are on every night during the week, so you can watch them every night. Check them out if you haven't seen them. And I wanted to check my messages to make sure I've caught up with everything you guys have written. I'm just calling up my email here. All right, caught up there, and I should also mention that on Thursday we will be covering President Trump's press conference that he's going to be giving from the White House on Thursday with the Prime Minister of Italy. So they're giving a joint press conference. President Trump will answer questions. Our plan is to do our pre-show for that as well. So as soon as we know exactly what time that is happening and when we're coming on the air, we'll let you know. We will post it on our Twitter at RSB Network, and also follow us, subscribe to us on YouTube, and hit the notifications bell to get notifications about whenever we do a video. And tomorrow, if there is a Sean Spicer press briefing, we will cover that live as well. We cover them all. So, Micah, I think we might be getting off soon. We have no calls we're cutting off, correct? The phone line is, we're not waiting for, all right. So I guess we will wrap it up here. Micah, does that sound okay, like an okay plan? Okay, so we're going to wrap up here, and let's sum up. We saw President Trump speak. We saw him speak from Wisconsin. We saw him sign a Buy American, Hire American executive order. You can go back and watch the speech if you'd like. And tonight, watch us at Right Side Broadcasting. Watch Nick Fuentes and Wayne Dupree at 8 and 9 p.m. Eastern. Tune in all week as we cover the latest goings on. And if there's breaking news, we will always come on the air and cover it. So, this North Korea situation, look, a nuclear test, another nuclear test, a missile test, or a nuclear weapons test could happen at any time. That's a situation that could change very rapidly. So we're watching it. We will come on the air for you and cover it for you and give you an alternative to the mainstream media coverage of the news whenever breaking news happens. So look forward to seeing you then. Thanks again to Micah Messer for producing. Thank you to the moderators for moderating. Thank you to Nick Fuentes for calling in on the pre-show. I am Steve Lookner. This concludes our coverage of President Trump's speech today. Thank you all for tuning in. Much appreciated. And all of your excellent comments and questions today and phone calls, appreciate those as well. Nice work. And we will see you very soon, whether it's later today or tomorrow. Next time there's big news or the next press conference or event, we'll see you back here. But for now, have a great afternoon.